Since fans continue to give the Cardinals grief for the Matt Carpenter signing, how about we really twist the knife a bit, bring up some other reunions with former Cardinals that could happen with our friend Andrew Wang from redbirdrants.com. All on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow the podcast on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio and at LO_Cardinals. We're covering your team every single day here at the Locked On Network. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. That way you're interacting with us. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. The Cardinals offseason continues. We're inching our way towards spring training. We've got pitchers and catchers reporting, and I think it's just 20 days from today. And joining us for the podcast today from the New News Podcast and redbirdrants.com is Andrew Wang. Andrew, how are you on this rainy, crappy day?
I'm doing pretty good. I just got soaked in the rain walking home, so that was a little bit unfortunate. But we're doing okay now. Things are doing better.
Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, I wanted to do this real quick because I'm very proud of it. Ended up scoring this on eBay, and it arrived today. This is the newest addition to the Locked On Cardinals studio office that we have here. Let me hold it up for everybody who's on YouTube. The new Ozzie Smith bobblehead. Now, I think this came out last year, but Ozzie was my favorite Cardinals player growing up, and I've got like an autographed photo and stuff behind me, but I love this bobblehead from last year, and now he's going to be added to the little area here behind me, so I haven't even taken him out of the box yet, but I'm excited about that. Who was yours, just so people get to know you in case they haven't seen you on the New News Podcast or anything? Who was a guy that you were a huge fan of when you were like little Andrew growing up watching the Cardinals?
Yeah, we might hit on this guy later on in the episode, just a little bit of a sneak preview. But I'm glad you said back when I was little, because obviously Shohei Ohtani is my guy right now. But back in the day, it was Kolton Wong, second baseman, was with the Cardinals for quite a long time, and it was just really cool seeing someone who has like similar last name to me, same last name in Mandarin, playing on the team that I grew up watching. So. That was really awesome. And obviously the really unfortunate mishap at first base in the World Series. But then he came back from that really strong, and he proved to be a really solid player for the Cardinals in the future. I actually got his autograph when I was at the game against the Brewers that Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina broke the all-time starts by a battery record. So that was really cool getting to meet him. And it was super cool of him to come out and say hi to all the Cardinal fans who remembered him and kind of recognize that. So that was just really cool to experience to have.
What was it you liked about Kolton as a player? Was it the defense, the speed? What was like your favorite aspect about him on the field?
Oh, the defense was always really exciting. He always make like some crazy play. There's the glove flip. And then I think there was another game where he like threw the ball like while he was like diving in midair to get the runner at first base, like jumping catches. It was always a show with Kolton Wong in the field.
I can imagine. Remember, if we had an infield of my guy Ozzie and your guy Kolton together, that'd have been a heck of a infield right up the middle there for the Cardinals. So I don't know. We'll have to dream about that. Never going to be a reality. But the point of this segment, though, is the fact that it was not Matt Carpenter. That wasn't your favorite growing up. And Matt Carpenter is somebody that we've done a lot of talking about recently because fans continue to be, and I'm sure you're picking up on this as well, they're just kind of split about their feelings about the return of Matt Carpenter, the Cardinals in 2024. Some people, they like the move. They understand the move. And then there's others who, I understand their side of it too, where they're like, he's too old. He's not good anymore. They'd rather see the roster spot that Carp would take up go to somebody who's younger instead of a 38-year-old on the back end of his career. A guy who really struggled with the Cardinals the last couple of seasons. He was in St. Louis, had a tough year last year with San Diego. The last time he did do well was when he was with the Yankees, and outside of Yankee Stadium, he wasn't all that great of a hitter, really, if you go look at the stats. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on this reunion with Matt Carpenter? Do you get it? Are you pro the move, or are you just kind of like some of these other people who were like, I wish they would have gone in a different direction?
Yeah, so Matt Carpenter is not going to play much at all. He's the 26th man on the roster. He's the fourth bench player right now. And right now you have a bench consisting of Dylan Carlson, Alec Burleson, and Ivan Herrera, who's the backup catcher. So you can't really get rid of any of those guys. And all of those guys are going to get significant playing time. Like Carlson will play in center field if Mason Wynn gets a day off and Tommy Edman shifts to shortstop, or if there's just an injury in the outfield, Alec Burleson could take over. He could take over first base. There's a lot of versatility around. Brendan Donovan can play all the infield positions, can play corner outfield. Tommy Edman plays center field, plays second base and shortstop. So if you call up a young guy like Victor Scott or Thomas Ajayci, who a lot of people want to give playing time to at the major league level, it's just not going to happen with that last spot. You saw this last year. The Cardinals offensive core is just so deep that there's going to be a guy on the roster who just doesn't get any playing time at all. We saw that with Taylor Motter, Jose Fermin at some points. And this year, that's going to be Matt Carpenter. And he's going to be a leader in the clubhouse. That's something that's been emphasized a lot this offseason. And whether or not that's a discredit to Goldschmidt Arenado's leadership, that remains to be seen. I feel like it should still be okay in the clubhouse. We got Carpenter back, Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, and Lance Lynn are going to cement the leadership on the pitching side. I'm not too worried about it. And when you have to go out and find a guy who is not going to play really at all, you're given a choice between like Jose Fermin, a guy who no one's really heard of, isn't really that relevant of a player and doesn't have that leadership role, or Matt Carpenter, a guy who's been in the organization before, is familiar with some of the players and coaches that are still there. It's a pretty easy choice for me.
Yeah, and we've heard in different articles that Arenado, Goldschmidt, they asked for some extra leadership help that, that last year it was kind of tough on them to be the ones that had to carry that as much leadership as they needed to. Doesn't help that the team wasn't any good, so it was even worse for them. But they asked Mo if he would go and find some guys that could help him out. And Matt Carpenter is somebody that, when he was here in St. Louis, despite the last two seasons where he wasn't that great offensively, but the team itself won a lot of ball games. I pointed out in a podcast recently that they had less than 85 wins just once while Matt Carpenter was on this team. Granted, he wasn't the only reason why, but he was part of that core that did things the Cardinal way. It's a guy that they're really comfortable with. And you pointed out the 26th man on the roster is got to be a person that is comfortable with not playing all the time. A guy like Paul DeYoung last year was another guy that was a lot like the Jose Fermins or the Taylor Motters or any of these guys that are going to be at the end of the bench. They got to be okay with not being out there all the time. And to put somebody young, like I hated seeing Lucan Baker up on this team last year and just sitting there. It drove me nuts. It's like, why do you bring him up then? Let him continue to hit at Memphis then, if that's what you're going to do. You don't want to do that to a young guy. It's pointless. It's going to stunt their growth. They're not going to get any better. They're just going to be sitting around. So you have to find somebody that is okay with that type of situation. And it was clear that Matt Carpenter is okay with that and wanted to be back in St. Louis, a lot like Lance Lynn did, and Kyle Gibson wanted to be here, and Sonny Gray. So I think it makes a lot of sense. There are people out there who will continue to argue with me about that, but you can't make everybody understand what the Cardinals are doing all the time. Sometimes we don't even understand it. But it brings me to the article that you put out this morning at redbirdrant.com, where you put out a list of 6 possible reunions, guys that the front office might be targeting at some point in the future, if not maybe this year, we don't know, but somebody that might end up coming back into a Cardinal uniform at some point. So we're going to get into those next here with Andrew Wang from redbirdrants.com on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL regular season has wrapped up. We're in playoff time, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, the app, if you haven't tried it out yet, very simple, very easy to use. A lot of different ways for you to bet, which makes it even that much more fun. You've got the live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab because there are ways that you can bet through this that maybe you haven't even thought of, and that's what the Explore tab is about. They've also got the Parlay Hub, so you're thinking about what is the best way for me to put down a parlay bet and really make some money. Well, that's what the Parlay Hub is all about. You go there and you can see what some of the most popular parlays are, and there's probably a good reason why so many people are putting their money down on a bet like that. It's the best way to find popular parlays. That's available on the app. Championship weekend in the NFL, game 1 on Sunday. You got Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at the #1 seeded Baltimore Ravens. Likely league MVP Lamar Jackson on the other side there. Ravens favored by 3.5. Game 2, you got the Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. Niners, the #1 seed. They got MVP candidates in Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. Niners are favored by 7 in that one. We don't know the status of Deebo Samuel just yet, but there's a possibility he doesn't play. Packers played him pretty tough last week. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Feedback, always welcome, always encouraged. We got Andrew Wang from redbirdrants.com joining us here today. You can follow him on Twitter X, excuse me, Andrew_Wang7 on Twitter X. And of course, you can find him and our buddy Josh Jacobs and company at the New News Podcast. So let's get into the article that you posted this morning about some possible reunions down the road for the Cardinals and some former players. We're going to start with a guy that I honestly, I don't know a person that says, no, we never want to see this guy in a Cardinal uniform again. And that would be Jordan Montgomery. What are your thoughts on Jordan Montgomery, Andrew?
Yeah, so Jordan Montgomery, we traded him to the Rangers at the deadline this season because he's an impending free agent. Got back a pretty good haul of prospects in return for him. But he really performed well in Texas, led them to a World Series title, was one of the key contributors to that team. And now he's looking for a really expensive deal. And that's kind of where this reunion might fall apart a little bit. I would be really excited to have him back. I think we need another starter that's better than Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz, Kyle Gibson, and Lance Lynn to pair with Sonny Gray in the postseason. Having Sonny Gray and Jordan Montgomery back to back in the playoffs would be really scary. So I'm all for it. I think it might be a little bit expensive though. And the front office and ownership has kind of shut down any ideas of signing another free agent starting pitcher. And Montgomery's kind of the last one left other than Blake Snell, who's a guy I'm not too keen on spending what he's asking for either. So I would be really interested if the front office wanted to stretch the budget and ownership allows that, to really go all in on a guy like Jordan Montgomery. I just don't know if it's going to happen. And right now it's looking like that's probably not the case.
Yeah, one of the arguments that I made for, because like you mentioned that the team, the front office seems to be hesitant to give a long-term contract to any pitcher. It's not just Jordan Montgomery or Blake, just anybody. They're just not willing to do that right now. And I brought up the argument where, let's pretend things went better last year. Jordan Montgomery was still on your team. You didn't trade him. Wouldn't the Cardinals be trying to extend him or sign him to a big contract anyway? So if there was a guy that you were going to go 7 years and $100-something million for, it would be that guy. It would be Jordan Montgomery, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were talks that they were going to look to extend him instead of Miles Michaelis. I wish that that had been the case, and we could have traded Michaelis somewhere else. Like, I'm sorry, but the Michaelis deal isn't looking as promising as it once did earlier last like April. So he's probably going to go get paid somewhere else. Unfortunately, I've heard the Angels, Red Sox, I think the Yankees and Rangers are all possibilities for him, and I mean, I'll be happy for him that he gets paid, but I really, really want ownership to open up just a little bit so we get that one last starter to make us like true contenders.
Yeah, it feels like that they're doing the Cardinal thing where, well, let's just see where we're at, and then if there's something available at the deadline, then now we have wiggle room to go out and get somebody like that. So I'm not holding my breath that Jordan's going to be coming back to St. Louis anytime soon. Now we know bullpen is also an issue, and that seems to be where their focus is right now. It seems kind of like they've moved on from the starting rotation, no matter how much we whine about it. And the bullpen is a spot that they could add, and Mo continues to say that they haven't shut the door on adding another arm yet. What about an arm that used to be here? You know him. I know him. He was on your guys' charity podcast. Great guy. Former closer for the Cardinals, Trevor Rosenthal. What, for those of you who don't know, what's Trevor Rosenthal been up to? And is he healthy, Andrew? Is this something that could happen sooner rather than later?
Yeah, so Trevor Rosenthal hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball since the 2020 COVID-shortened season, but in that year he was really good. 23 appearances to a 1.90 ERA. I think the Royals signed him on a prove-it deal, and then they traded him to San Diego at the deadline. And he actually closed the door on the Cardinals in the playoffs that year. Most people don't remember that. I don't like to think about it, but wasn't a great memory of mine. But he was really good and signed a pretty big 1-year deal with Oakland, I believe. And then he got hurt, never pitched for them. And then he signed with like the Brewers on a 1-year deal. Again, season ended due to injury, never made an appearance on a major league mound. And then last year signed a minor league contract with the Detroit Tigers. And within like 2 appearances or something, he tore his UCL, had to get a second Tommy John surgery. So it's just been a really unfortunate like series of events for Rosenthal. But like the last time we saw him, he was still really good. He still has the velocity that we know and love from back in the day. And we talked to him. He's rehabbing his elbow. It's a second time, so he's more comfortable. Like he knows how the process goes, and he's working hard to try to make it back. And we asked him, kind of jokingly, kind of not, if he would be interested in a reunion. And he said that as soon as the Cardinals had signed Lance Lynn and brought back Descalso as the bench coach, he texted Ollie Marmol, who he was like close with at some point in the Cardinals organization. And was like, hey, do you want to get the band back together? So he is definitely open to a reunion in St. Louis. And I mean, he just signed a minor league deal with the Tigers and it didn't work out. So I can't see him getting a major league contract. He's going to have to prove it on a minor league deal, which is like not going to cost the Cardinals anything. So I don't see any downside to giving an offer to Trevor Rosenthal. We still have another bullpen slot open. And if he is healthy by summer and is able to provide even a fraction of what he did, even in 2020, where he was really, really good with the Royals and the Padres, then we could have a really cheap arm back in the bullpen, giving us some of that veteran leadership. And there's really no reason not to do it, because if he's still hurt, then you can just cut him and you didn't waste any money because it's a minor league contract. And if he's really good, then he's really good. And you got a guy in your bullpen that'll be good for the playoffs in high leverage situations. And having prime Trevor Rosenthal back doesn't sound all that bad to me. He's only 33 years old. We've seen the Cardinals sign guys who are much older than that and give them more money. So I don't see why not.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Trevor that people might forget, because it seems like it was a million years ago that he was on the team, but he's still only 34 years old. So, or going to be 34, he's 33 now, going to be 34 here soon. So, yeah, he's one of those guys again, and it wouldn't cost you much, and it would give you a chance to see what he's got in the minor leagues. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So not a risky move whatsoever. Now I want to move on quickly to a guy that we talked about a little bit ago, one of your favorites growing up, if not your favorite all time, let's talk about Kolton Wong and what he's been up to. Because honestly, I forgot that he was even a part of the Dodgers roster last year. I strictly remembered him as a Brewer and then a Mariner. Ended up on the Dodgers last year. What's going on with Kolton Wong, and why would that make sense for this front office to bring him back into the fold at some point?
So the Cardinals let Kolton Wong go at the end of the 2020 season. It was really sad for me because I bought the jersey and I never got to watch him play because of the COVID shortened season. But that's my own thing. The Brewers picked him up on a 2-year deal with I think a player option. And he was a pretty good hitter. He posted a 113 OPS plus with the Brewers, which is better than any of the years he had with the Cardinals. His defense slipped a little bit. I think it's not as electric as we used to see, but I'm sure it's still serviceable. Milwaukee traded him to the Mariners last season, and he was terrible. In 67 games, 216 plate appearances, hit 2 home runs, and hit to a 468 OPS, which was good for a 34 OPS plus. The Mariners decided to cut ties with him because that was just not playable. That was like Taylor Motter levels of not good. And the Los Angeles Dodgers, they took a flyer on him. And in his very first plate appearance, he hit a home run. So that was fun. But limited playing time for him, 20 games. But he was used mostly as a platoon bat in late innings against right-handed relievers. Hit 300, 353 on base, 500 slugging for a 127 OPS plus. So it was pretty good. A lot of hitters go to Seattle and they struggle. Teoscar Hernandez is a guy that the Dodgers just picked up. They believe they can fix him and fix some of the flaws that came into his offensive game in Seattle. I know they've struggled a lot with hitting, so I wouldn't shock me if Wong's struggles were kind of attributed to some of the Seattle hitting development, or maybe just playing at that park in general. It's a very pitcher-friendly park, but honestly, I don't think many teams are going to look at Wong very seriously after what he did with Seattle. But he's 1 year removed from being a solid hitter in Milwaukee. 116 OPS plus hitter. So if he wants to take that last spot, if someone's going to get hurt, right, at some point during the season. So you're going to need at some point in the midseason, probably going to need to bring in either a younger guy who's not going to get a lot of playing time, maybe Jose Fermin sees more time, or you can pick up Kolton Wong on a minor league contract if he's still floating around out there. I think it's a good match. You can use him as a defensive replacement at times, rest guys who are healthy. Oh, there goes my lights. He could. Okay, can we cut right there? Sorry, my lights are.
You can go do what you got to do, and there you go.
All right, I got these fancy lights that turn off and on every like 40 minutes or something.
This is real life. This is what podcasts are about, man. It's all good. Let me ask you this real quick. If you had a choice between Kolton Wong being on the team or Matt Carpenter right now, which one would you choose? And try to keep your bias because you loved him out of it. Just as far as a player on the roster, which one do you think would actually contribute a little more this year?
See, it's hard because Matt Carpenter has more positional flexibility. He can play more positions. Kolton Wong is like exclusively a second baseman. And we have three of those guys. Tommy Edman can play second. Donovan plays second. Gorman plays second. So it would be really hard for Kolton Wong to get into games. So I feel like Carpenter, just being the 26th man, probably makes more sense, probably has more of that leadership voice. So as much as I love Kolton Wong, it's probably better that we have Carpenter. And Wong would probably demand some amount of playing time. He's going to be 33 next year. I don't think he's got retirement plans soon. He probably wants to show that he has something left in the tank because he was good just 2 years ago. So I feel like Carpenter makes more sense currently. But if we start to lose players due to injury at some point down the line, we might need to call in an old friend.
And that would be a good one because we all know and love Kolton Wong from his time in a Cardinal uniform. So we've got your first three: Jordan Montgomery, Trevor Rosenthal, Kolton Wong, in no order of when they would get added or anything like that. That's just the list that we've got going. We've got three more to talk about, and we'll do that next with Andrew Wang from the New News Podcast and RedbirdRants.com right here on Locked On Cardinals. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Again, Andrew Wang from the Newt News Podcast, redbirdrants.com, and lifelong Cardinal fan, joining us here today, talking about his newest article, which is up right now at redbirdrants.com. I'll have the article itself linked in the show notes and in the comments section down below on YouTube. So if you want to go check that out and read the entire write-up that Andrew has done for this particular article, then we'd love for you to do that. Moving on, we'll go to somebody who was technically was on the roster a bit last year as a coach for a heartbeat, and then decided, you know what, I don't think I'm ready to do this whole full-time coach thing. And that would be Matt Holliday. Would be no surprise to me if he and the Cardinals decide at some point when the rest of his sons are moving on with their lives and move out of the house that he might decide to come back into the fold with the Cardinals. I think you feel the same way, don't you?
Yeah, so Matt Holliday was the bench coach for like a month or so last year before he pulled out of that role. He decided he wanted to spend more time with his family, which is completely understandable. He should go enjoy his time. Cardinals Hall of Famer, legend of the franchise. So we completely respect that decision. But Daniel Descalso has now taken that bench coach role, and we've seen Yadier Molina do something very similar because he's prioritizing his family and spending time in Puerto Rico. So he's going to be like John Mozeliak's special assistant. I think that's the role that he took on. That's what Chaim Bloom took on. They're going to be doing completely different things. Obviously, Chaim Bloom's going to be working with like the pitching development. Molina's going to probably try to move into a coaching role at some point soon. But I feel like there's no limit on the number of special assistants you can give to John Mozeliak. So if you want to bring Matt Holliday back into the fold in a role like that, it would be really great. You could see him working with some of the younger hitters. And when he wants to go spend time with his family, he can go do that in a part-time role and just kind of see what's going on. I know he's interested in becoming a manager sometime soon. And I don't really want to get into the manager drama with the Cardinals right now because there's so many different things that could happen with Marmol or Molina or Holliday or Stubby Clapp at the end of this offseason that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But Holliday definitely has a role on this team if he wants one. So he could fit really well into a part-time role, I feel like.
Yeah, and he's still a part of the franchise. It's not like any bridges were burned when he decided to step away last year. In fact, this offseason, he's been working with Matt Carpenter, and I can only assume that he's one of the guys that the Cardinals and Mo talk to say, like, how are things with Matt? You know, are things looking up? Are they back? Because that's who we worked with before he took off with the New York Yankees, and working with Matt again. Probably a good thing. All right, let's move back to the bullpen for this next one. A former Cardinal from early on, most of his career had nothing to do with St. Louis, but it's a guy that I'm a fan of bringing back if they are going to fill another spot in the bullpen, and that's Adam Ottavino. What do you think about Adam?
Yeah, so my co-host Sandy on the Newt News podcast, he's a big fan of Trevor Rosenthal. Why? I'm not fully sure because wasn't that great and had to go back to Japan. But he wrote an article about Drew Verhagen recently and how the Cardinals need to fill his role of having an innings eater in the bullpen. And to that extent, I agree. Whether it should have been Drew Verhagen or not, I'm indifferent. But Adam Ottavino has pitched a lot of innings in his career. He is consistently throwing over 60 innings every season since 2018, except for the 2020 shortened season, which obviously that's not possible. Right. So, and he also throws pretty quality innings. Last season with the Mets, pitched to a 3.21 ERA. The peripherals indicate he got a little bit lucky, but I feel like we have our high leverage arms mostly out of the way. You have Helsley, obviously, Romero, Gallegos, and Kittredge, who we just acquired from the Reyes, could be a really good high leverage option. He's 37 going on 38, which I know is going to get eye rolls from a lot of Cardinals
right in the
fans.
Cardinals' wheelhouse, Andrew.
Yeah, so I don't know how he's going to age, but like he pitched pretty decently last year. The peripherals weren't as good as I would have liked to see. Could indicate some age regression, but as long as it's a cheap 1-year deal, there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, right? That's what I always like to tell myself, unless you're Greg Holland, and you just completely take the Cardinals funds away for 1 year. But I don't see why not taking a chance on him. It could be like the difference between like getting a lot of innings out of a quality arm, or getting out of a lot of innings out of like Ryan Tepera or Casey Lawrence, or random guys that you've never heard of filling in back end of the bullpen arms, or that like they're just going to fill innings when you need them.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Ottavino, anytime I saw him go up against the Cardinals, he seemed to do very, very well. He's been a steady guy, healthy for the most part throughout his career. So I would have no problems with that if they decided to, if that was who they were going to spend one final spot on for the bullpen. He would be a guy that seems to make a lot of sense. I'm a guy that's kind of pushed for David Robertson, another older guy, 38, but has just had a lot of success and has been on a lot of winning teams. And I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate that one. Now, this next one is one because it's an unfortunate story, because at one time, this guy was the number one right-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball, not just for the Cardinals, but all of baseball. And the injuries just would not stop. We're talking about Alex Reyes, who his last pitch for the Cardinals was unfortunately the home run to Chris Taylor. And we never saw him again. Injuries have kept him out of the game. In fact, he ended up going back. He went to the Dodgers, but never got a chance to actually pitch for them at the major league level. So Alex Reyes is still kind of floating around out there. I don't have any issues with this one whatsoever, because it would, again, be like one of those 1-year minor league deals. But Alex Reyes coming back to the Cardinals, thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, so Alex Reyes obviously had a very unfortunate start to his career. He got hurt a lot. I think he got suspended for some sort of violating some of the drug policies. Just very turbulent start to his Cardinals career, and he just didn't pitch a lot. And then in 2021, he was used out of the bullpen, and he was really, really, really good in the first half. Selected as an All-Star. I think he broke the record for most saves in a row to start a Cardinals career or something like that. So he was just really, really dominant in the first half of 2021. Unfortunately, due to some like overuse, maybe he just regressed a little bit. The league started figuring him out. He kind of slid back to not being as dominant in the second half, but he was still pretty good. And then obviously that unfortunate wild card game against the Dodgers, which still gives me flashbacks to that terrible at against Chris Taylor. But 2022, he got hurt. I think he had to get some shoulder injections, and he just never made it back onto the field. The Cardinals non-tendered him, and the Dodgers picked him up for a 1-year deal, just over $1 million. I think there was a club option attached to that, and the Dodgers declined it because he also just didn't pitch, got hurt again. So we're looking at a minor league deal for Alex Reyes, unfortunately, which is really, really not what we expected from the top pitching prospect in all of baseball from back in the day. So he still has that potential. He's still the same person. We just have to see if the injuries have like changed the way he throws or the way that like he delivers the ball. And if it has, then he might not be the same guy anymore. But it's worth giving a flyer to someone like that, just because the skills were there at one point. It's a minor league prove it deal, and if he's bad, just like with Trevor Rosenthal, if he's bad or injured, you don't have to waste any money on him. So I like the high reward, zero risk players.
Sure.
Obviously, would I like to go after like Josh Hader? Yeah, sure. But there's also a chance that Josh Hader just completely falls off. Like we saw after the Brewers traded him to the Padres. He was terrible. And then he figured it out again, which was good. And now he's gotten himself a really good deal. But relievers are just so turbulent that I'm not really comfortable giving that many long-term deals to relievers. So taking chances on guys like Alex Reyes or Trevor Rosenthal or other guys that we haven't even mentioned, I feel like is better than going out and getting a big name, because honestly, like, did we really expect Ryan Helsley to come out and be an all-star, or Alex Reyes to be an all-star? Like, these guys can kind of just come from wherever. It's one of the most unpredictable parts of the game. So
yeah.
I don't see
And the Cardinals have a lot of young arms that, they've made moves in this offseason to acquire, so that they have just what I like to say, just a few more bullets in the gun, because like you said, it's a tough job going out there. Not everybody's good at it, but sometimes you can find somebody who, for whatever reason, it can be special in the bullpen. And a Nick Anderson or somebody like that could go off this year. It could happen. Doesn't hurt to have some guys that have been there before available in your system just in case they come back healthy and are able to give you. And we're not asking them to be closers anymore. We're saying middle relief, 40, 50 innings, maybe. It's not like you're asking a ton out of these guys. And again, it's not expensive. It's a low risk, high reward if it happens. And like you said, that's one of the best ways to go about business. It's when you give out, contracts to like Brett Cecil and Andrew Miller, and they blow up in your face and it doesn't work. And now you're stuck with those guys. So those are the ones that you're staying away from and that you shy away from nowadays. And that wouldn't be the issue with really any of these guys that we've brought up here, Jordan Montgomery being the only outlier because obviously coming off a stellar season and looking to score a big contract. So let us know in the comments which one of these players-wise, because we know everybody's fine with Matt Holliday coming back. We know that. We know Jordan Montgomery is somebody you guys want, but Kolton Wong, Trevor Rosenthal, Adam Ottavino, Taylor Motter. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the autographed ball from Andrew with Taylor Motter. Alex Reyes, any of these guys that you think you would be okay with signing to a deal that we mentioned, or if it is somebody like a Taylor Motter or somebody else outside that you think would be a good reunion for the Cardinals, let us know in the comments section. Hit us both up on Twitter X, and we can chat about it. Once again, make sure you follow Andrew on Twitter X, Andrew_Wang7. He is also available as part of the Newt News podcast, as well as RedbirdRants.com. This whole article that he did today, going to have that in the show notes, going to have that in the comments section so you guys can click on that and check it out, because I know what you're going to do. You're going to end up doing what I do when I go to RedbirdRants.com. You click one, and then you go down this rabbit hole of stuff that they all talk about, because they got this whole staff just talking about everything Cardinals baseball, and then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why is it 4 a.m? I've been reading this stuff all night. It'll happen to you, I'm telling you. Anything else you want to add, Andrew?
No, that's pretty much it. You can check out the Newt News podcast. We got Central previews coming out. And yeah, thanks for having me, JD. It's been such a good time.
Always, man. And look forward to having you guys on some more here in the very near future and reading more of your guys' stuff, because it's always entertaining. Thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give both of us a follow on Twitter X and at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, as well as Andrew_Wang7. Like and subscribe on YouTube to help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. And we'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.